Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, folks, welcome to the Historic Preservation Board meeting for March 6, 2025. Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call, please?
Member Hurley?
Present.
Member Young?
Present.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Present.
Member Dashiell?
Here.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
We have a quorum.
Okay, we'll do the approval of the agenda. Before we get what's already on the agenda, does anybody have anything they'd like to add as a discussion item for today's meeting?
I would like to add a discussion item, just sharing all the local businesses that have reopened in Paso Grow.
Okay, so we'll call that discussion item 5D. Anybody have anything else? All right, I would like to add a discussion item to talk about the Mary Pier and the Shuffleboard building. And we'll call that 5E. Okay, anybody had an opportunity to look at the agenda and have any kind of motions for that?
Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Staff had one item, 4A, the owner has asked to withdraw, so that will not be heard.
Which one is that again?
That is 4A.
Okay. Any discussion items you'd like, Brandon?
None to add, no.
All right, well, I've looked at the agenda, and I would ask that I'd move that we approve the agenda for today.
Second.
Madam Clerk, roll
Member
call,
Young?
please.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith? Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, this is a portion of the meeting, folks out there, which is for audience comments, which you have 3 minutes to come up and talk about some subject of your choice, basically. However, if you're here to talk about a specific action matter, then you can wait and speak at that point. So if you're here just to speak about something in general, now's your opportunity to do that. Otherwise, wait. If you filled out, when that happens, you have to come up, give your name and your address so you identify yourself. Okay, does anybody want to speak about any general matters? Okay, let's move on. The next
Chair
thing
Lowry, I think we missed approval of the minutes.
I thought we just did.
Wasn't that?
I know, that's what I'm going to do now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you skipped them.
According to this, audience comments becomes before approval of the minutes. So, so now let's talk about the minutes. Has anybody had an opportunity to read the minutes from last month's meeting?
I have. I would go ahead and move to approve.
I'll second that motion. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so now we're on to action items. As we just said, 4A has been removed, so we're now at 4B, which is the local historic designation number 24108 for the properties located at 3215 and 3217 East DeBasin Avenue. Brandon, do you have this?
This will be Gil Martinez, but City Clerk, can we swear in anybody speaking today,
We
please?
can indeed. Anybody who will be speaking to the board or presenting, please stand up. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you're about to give to the board is truthful? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Martinez.
Good afternoon, board, Mr. Board and Chair and board members. Where's the clicker, guys?
It's coming.
Sorry. The item before you today is a request for local historic designation by Deborah Warner for Deborah Warner Revocable Trust and Diane and Kevin O'Brien for the property located at 3215 and 3217 East DeBasin. The application is requesting local historic designation for a multifamily duplex structure located at said address. Here are a couple of images of the property dating back to 2014 and 2019. In its historic background, it is located within the Don Cesar Place community. It is an area that was platted by Thomas Rowe, the developer of the Don Cesar Hotel. It was originally housed for VA workers and nurses, and it generally contributes to the Don Cesar Place neighborhood's character. It was built in 1949 in a Mediterranean revival style with stucco walls and Spanish-style roof. It's cement block construction, ceramic tile floors, and cement tile gable roof. Both units feature sunrooms with views directly of the Don Cesar Hotel. Staff supports this application to locally designate 3215 and 3217 East DeBoslin Avenue as historic property. Staff finds that the building is significant in the following areas. It embodies a distinctive visible characteristic of an architectural style and period, and it's also associated with the life of a person who played a significant role in our community. We bring forward a motion to approve case number 24108 for local historic designation of the multifamily duplex structure at 3215, 3217 East DeBoslin Avenue. The applicants are here to answer any questions you may have, as well as I am.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Martinez? Would the applicants like to come forward and speak? No one wants to come forward? You don't necessarily have to, but it's your opportunity. I'm sorry. Let me get my mic better. This is an opportunity for you to come up and speak to the board if you'd like to. You don't necessarily have to, but some people like to brag about their houses, so. Okay, well, I guess I have a question or two. These are those duplexes that, I don't know, there was a woman in here, that's you, from before we talked about this, right? Okay. And so the only question I would have, and I'm sure this has all been done, is the duplex is owned by two different parties, and that's each one of you, correct? So you're both in agreement on this. All right. That's the only questions I had. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Well, I would just say that I think these are, for what it's worth, I know there's a number of them there that were probably all built around 49. This is the first time I've heard that. I guess it was mainly for the nurses and staff there when the Don was a hospital, I guess, which is pretty neat. So I have no other comments than that, but I will make a motion that we go ahead and approve for local historic designation, case number 24108, the residents of 3215 and 3217 East DeBoslin Avenue.
I'll second that motion.
Roll call, please.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith? Yes. Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next we have 4C, local historic designation number 25011 for the residents at 103 17th Avenue. Hi, Lynn.
Hello, good afternoon. Good morning. Oh, good morning, God.
It's part of the day.
I've been up a long time today.
It's all the same.
It's all the same. I'm Lynn Rossetti, contract historic planner for the city, and my case is case number 25011. Cheryl Callahan is the owner, as well as she has a revocable trust. She's not able to be here today. After I finish my presentation, she asked me to read a statement, which I will do. All right. So this property is located at 103 17th Avenue, and it is a single-family, one-story, minimal traditional residential structure that was constructed in 1947. It has some distinguishing architectural features, including a hipped roof, 1/1 double-hung vinyl sash corner windows with projecting sills, overhanging eaves, arched louvers, and Cuban tile. It further features an exterior chimney, and this is really a very well-preserved mid-century house. There are more photographs in the application, which did not get into the staff the presentation, but they are really, it's really a nice house, well taken care of, well maintained. The historic I keep forgetting this. Okay. This is the house. You can see it's looks very well maintained. Staff is supporting this application to locally designate 103 17th Avenue as a historic property. Staff finds that the building is significant in the following areas. It reflects the broad cultural, economic, and social history of the Paso Grill neighborhood and St. Pete Beach. It's also reflective of Paso Grill's and St. Pete Beach's community planning and development efforts. Staff is recommending a motion to approve case number 25011 for local historic designation of the single-family structure located at 103 17th Avenue. Let me see. At this point, I'm done with my presentation. Unless you've got any questions, I will go ahead and read the letter from Ms. Callahan.
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Okay. Dear Ms. Rossetti, I cannot attend tomorrow's meeting of the St. Pete Beach Historic Preservation Board and ask that this email statement be included, submitted in the public records. I own 103 17th Avenue and strongly advocate for preservation for our community's historic structures. I'm proud to say that how my 1947 home stands today, there is nothing short of a miracle. An original footprint and most of her vintage features represents such a happy and simple time, a period marked with fresh starts after World War II. The house reflects the character and heritage of our Paso Grill community and is meticulously maintained. 103 is a tough old broad that stood strong during the devastating hurricanes we had in 2024. 103 is resilient. 103 is history wrapped in nostalgia to me. I hope you find this structure as worthy for local historic designation as I do. If there are any questions or concerns that cannot be addressed in my absence today, I kindly ask that your decision be deferred so that I can attend the next meeting. And then she also attached the optional noticing waiver, and I gave a copy of that to Brandon so that I could speak for her and she did not appear here today. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a question, Lynn. So it's a single family. Is there a second unit on the
No.
property?
No.
There is not.
No, one unit.
I have intimate knowledge of that property. No, there's only one single-family home, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath.
I think you were the realtor. Yes, I know. Cheryl told me. Anybody else? You may have that. Thank you.
It is a home that does fit the nature of our beach, and she's kept it that way. She's been very, very good at taking care of it.
Yeah, I just saw a couple pictures and then my screen went blank that, you know, a little.
I just lost everything too.
Microwave, and I wasn't sure
I
if
don't
that
know
was.
what just happened, but I lost everything on my tablet also.
Yeah, mine's still blank, but
Well, here, I'll
we'll
share
struggle
with
through.
you.
That's all right. I mean, for the purposes of what we have here, yes, I don't know if we need too much discussion, considering this is probably an ideal example of, you know, post-World War II at Bungalow.
I move to go ahead and approve.
I'll second that motion. Roll call, please.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And just for the record, that's designation number 25011, 103 13th Avenue.
17th Avenue.
17th, excuse me.
Yeah, 103 17th.
Yeah, I think I said 13th. I apologize. Okay, now we're going on to 4D, local historic designation number 25012 of the home at 3215 West Americana Drive. Mr. Martinez.
use this one if you need to.
Okay, thank you.
Are you doing something with the clicker over there?
Try to.
Good afternoon, Board. Gil Martinez, Senior Planner. Before you is a request for local historic designation for the property located at 3215 Maritana Drive, case number 25012. The applicant, Gregory Cadell, for Gregory Cadell Revocable Trust, is requesting a local historic designation for the single-family structure located at said address. It's a beautiful home. Just to start off with, this placard is on the structure. How it got here, what its history is, we really don't know, but it's pretty interesting.
They were offered early on where you could contact the company directly and go ahead and get your home medallion.
Oh, really?
When it was designated back in the early 2000s.
Oh, good to know. Thank you. Couple of images of the home, current image and a 2014 image. An image of the home. The home also has two features associated with it, which is the dock to the front, as well as a carriage house that was added some years ago, but was not part of the original construction. It's very complementary in its design to the overall architectural features of the single-family home. Some interior shots that, really frame the beauty, the internal beauty of the home, as well as how it interacts with the outside. This is a very interesting image of the home back in, well, we really don't know the year, but as you can see, the Don Cesar was under construction, and it's notable that this was actually the home of Thomas Rowe while the Don Cesar was being built. It was built in 1927 by Thomas Rowe, the architect for the Don Cesar. It's Mediterranean Revival style. It has direct views to the Don Cesar Hotel during its construction.
Comes with a soundtrack, too. I like that.
Yeah, right? It's red clay tile roof, stucco exterior, arched entryways, spiral columns, shaped parapet, circular vent. It's got 10 light casement windows with 1 light fixed window and arched transomes, original arched top wood slab door, and shred roof porch supported by stucco columns. Staff recommends approval for local historic designation of the residential structure located at 3215 West Maritana Drive because A, it embodies the distinctive visible characteristics of an architectural style, and it's also associated with the life of a person who played a significant role in our community. We recommend motion to approve case number 25012 for local historic designation of the single-family residence at 3215 West Maritana Drive. I'm here to answer any questions that I may, and the applicant is here as well to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Martinez?
I do not.
Mr. Cadell, do you wish to come up and speak to us? We'd love to hear from you, so come on up. Please state your name for the record, please.
Gregory Cadell. So I just want to say a quick thanks to the board for the important work you're doing for historic preservation. Special thanks to Tia, who connected me with this house in 2019, and it's been a pleasure to live there. It's important to me, and I think it's important to the community to have this designation. Just coming up here with my sister, we drove by the Don, and the extensive amount of restoration that's going on there really shines a light on the importance of everybody connected to that. That's not going to go away, even though it was threatened years ago to disappear. it didn't, and I think all the connecting houses should be, get an extra bit of importance in their designation. But anyway, thank you so much. The spirit of Thomas Rowe, they say the Don's haunted. So I'm getting a little vibe that you guys have to pass this. You know, just saying. So it's not a threat, but anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Cadell. Appreciate it.
Any questions?
No, you're the perfect fit for that house, and I knew you would take good care of it and love it.
Thank you so much to you. I appreciate that so much.
So I'm going to make a motion that we approve local historic designation 25012, 3215 West Samaritano Drive.
And I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith,
Yes.
Member Daschle,
Yes.
Member Hurley,
Yes.
Member Young,
Yes.
Chair Lowry.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Okay, moving on to 4E, Certificate of Appropriateness for the restoration of case number 25017, which is the address of 3401 Casablanca Avenue. Lynn?
Good afternoon again, Lynn Rossetti. Okay. The property owners of this local historic landmark are requesting a certificate of appropriateness to replace the outdoor rear patio that was severely damaged during Hurricane Helene. We may have a picture of it in this. If not, it's in your part of your packet. So the house was built in 1936. The property was included in the city's first historic survey undertaken in the mid-1980s. A Florida Master Site file was submitted to the state in 1987. In addition, 3401 Casablanca was locally designated a historic landmark in 1996, but that was before the city was a certified local government. And so consequently, on July 9th, was it on the 9th? I think that's what it was. It was locally landmarked on July 9th, 2020. I remember doing the case. And furthermore, the 2024 historic survey of the Don Cesar Place and Bella Vista neighborhoods, the historic consultants that did that survey noted that this particular house, the Thomas Rowe house, they felt was one of two properties that they had surveyed between Bella Vista and Don Cesar that was eligible for National Register listing. I have informed the owner of that. 3401 Casablanca Avenue is a very good example of the mission style of architecture. Back when we redid the historic designation, there was a certificate of appropriateness that went with it that included and also included a FEMA variance. So I don't know if all of those projects have been finished, but if the property owner wants to continue and do any of those projects, they don't have a date of expiration, if you'll recall. And so they can get a list from us in the building department. We keep that record in our building permit information, and we also record any FEMA variance and the list that has been approved. We record that with the county, so that's part of the property appraiser records that they can find out. I say though, the current work is to replace the outdoor screen patio, and that was not part of what was reviewed in 2020. Let's see. Some pictures of the house. You can see the screen enclosure there, and post-hurricane, you can see what it looked like. That part has all been removed. They've demoed it, and it looks like that now. This just shows the proposed elevations. Staff supports the request for the certificate of appropriateness to replace the severely damaged outdoor patio in the same footprint as the former hurricane-destroyed covered patio, and find it consistent with the City of St. Pete Beach Land Development Code. Staff is recommending approval of the proposed certificates of appropriateness. I will be glad to answer any questions that you may have. If not, I know that the applicant is here and probably is anxious to speak to you.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Just so I'm clear, I think you stated it all, but I want to make sure. So this was designated historic before we, the city, had its own certification, but it's been redesignated. Is that
It was
correct?
redesignated in 2020, yes.
Right, okay, good. And then they did, the FEMA variance was pursuant to this being a historic structure. And as he said, maybe some of that's been done, maybe some of it hasn't, but they can continue on it because there's no expiration date for that?
That's
Is that what you said?
correct.
Okay,
That's correct. They can check with us and see what is on that list. And, you know, they would be free to get a permit and do that work.
And is
Have
that,
it done.
and that's great, but Brandon, is that still what's going on? I thought the other day someone was talking about you have to do it within a certain amount of time. I mean, I'm glad you don't, but you know what I'm talking about? It seemed like we talked about if you get the permit, maybe it's just pulling a permit, you have to do the permit within a certain amount of time.
We have time limits on permits, but not on certificates of.
Gotcha, okay, good. And the only thing, Lynn, that I was gonna say is obviously, they're redoing this open porch, but they're adding a roof structure that's similar to the original house's roof.
Yes.
Not, so it doesn't have a metal flat roof, it actually has a
It will hopefully look a little better.
yes, exactly. Okay, I thought that was a nice touch as well. Okay. Anyone have any more questions for Lynn?
So that new roof is not adding living area, correct?
It
It's
is
just
not.
Outdoor, okay.
It's still going to be a porch or patio, covered patio.
And the outdoor fireplace, that's replacing what was previously?
There was not, I don't believe there was an outdoor
No.
fireplace. But I don't think, I thought about that a lot, but I don't think it's anything that needs a certificate of appropriateness for, because it's kind of contained inside. You're not really going to see it from outside.
No, it looks great, and it matches the other
And it matches the
other
house.
feature on the chimney, I guess, on the
Yes.
main house.
It does.
All right.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the property owner want to be heard? First, let me tell you, thank you for, I guess that's a recent purchase for you guys. Beautiful house.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for coming in and doing this. It's really a great addition for a long time. So anything you want to tell us, or?
No, my name's Brian Jordan. My wife and I are here. I'm an architect as well. I just wanted to give a big thanks to the board and all the city staff. I think this has been horrendous for everyone involved in these storms. Our goal is to keep this house historic and spend as much money as we need to make sure it matches the neighborhood and just continues following the tradition of the neighborhood. So I really appreciate your time today and hope you agree with what we're doing.
Yeah, well, we appreciate what you've done very much. It's a beautiful house, and it's a beautiful addition or, fix-up you want to do to it. So thank you for that.
Keeping it historical is great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was our goal when we purchased it. We fell in love with the home, the neighborhood, so it's important to us that everything matches and is period correct.
Now, do you have ghosts in your house too, or do you know? No.
Well, I'm thinking that we do now after the storm, but hopefully not.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody have a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for restoration number 25017, 3401 Casablanca Avenue.
I second it.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Okay, 4F, Certificate of Appropriateness for the demolition, number 25014 of 1807 Pass-a-Grille Way. Who's handling that? No, I don't know.
If we could get the PowerPoint pulled up,
Yeah, hold on.
please.
Thank you, Brandon.
Okay. This is a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of 1807 Paso Girl Way, case number 25014. Applicant and owners are Victor Tonis and Wendy Hopwood, owners. The applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the contributing single-family residence. Here's some photographs of the structure. Showing it in 2015 on the left when it was picked up in the city's local historic resources survey, showing the structure on the right. I met with the applicant very shortly after the storm. He had been considering a few different options, and I know he's present today, could give some input on the choice to demolish. But here are some photos of the interior of the structure, as well as the exterior. As stated in every other meeting, the board cannot deny demolition permits because this structure is a contributing resource. A stay of up to 30 days could be placed on the demolition to discuss preservation incentives with the owner. And here are the criteria that we look at when reviewing these requests. Staff recommends approval of the request without any stay. The structure is scale appropriate. They did a very good job with the recent addition to the rear of the structure in helping to preserve its scale, mass, and architecture. However, it's not one of the remaining examples of the masonry vernacular style in Paso Grill. We do have a large number of ranch-style residences, especially in the Don Cesar neighborhood. And so that style is well represented in other areas of the city. Additionally, the structure has clearly sustained significant damage from the storm as justified by the applicant. As it is a single-family residence, there's nothing peculiar about the structure that would prevent it from being rebuilt in a FEMA-compliant and possibly scale-appropriate manner, just as long as it complies with the setbacks, lot coverage, and height limitations that would be imposed in any other structure in Paso Grill. Staff does not find any limitations in place to prevent the applicant from building a new residence of a similar character on the subject property. So if the board seeks any testimony from the applicant, that would be appropriate. However, we do recommend approval of case number 25014 for demolition of the residence at 1807 Paso Grill Way.
Anybody have any questions for Brandon?
I do not. I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and approve the demolition of the property.
Okay, we don't want to hear from anybody? That's fine.
Well,
We can just jump right ahead. That's fine by me. Because
didn't mean to jump ahead. It's just that
No,
we know what
no.
we know at the end of the day.
We should call for the opportunity for anybody to
Okay.
speak on it. though.
Anybody would like to speak?
Good afternoon, board. I'm Victor Tonis, and Wendy, my fiance, and I have owned the property since 2017. We love the house. We love the neighborhood. It's, hard for me to ask to demolish it, but it was devastated. The location that we're at the bottom of the channel, where the open water comes in and just funnels right in, it just is like a direct hit. I mean, we had a huge surge that bombed our house. So we had about 39 inches of water inside, totally flooded. The outside, just to give you an idea, the historic masonry wall that we had that was like 6 feet tall and 90 feet long, just reduced to rubble. We had 2 decks in the backyard with a hot tub filled with water, just washed away. So I think we were one of the hardest hit, like in Paso Grill, because of our location. So it's been a big struggle. We did a lot of research. I have to thank Brandon Berry very much for answering a lot of my questions and spending time with me and explaining the different intricacies of the rules and regs and codes concerning St. Pete Beach and Paso Grill and even our zone. There's a well line that comes right through our property, and that AE zone in particular requires breakaway walls. There's certain additional items that you need to do if you're going to build up. So I learned, I came into this pretty knowledgeable. We weighed out building on the ground. We wanted to do that. We weighed out elevating, abandoning the first floor, building on the second floor, and then finally demolishing. And we realize that at our age and our stage of life, we want to move forward in a peaceful, more, strategic way where we can just sort of relax and not keep our fingers crossed every year. As hard as it is, we have made a decision to rebuild an elevated home. We've found a good builder, Joe Walsh of Walsh Design and Build. They have proposed to us a very nice coastal style home. We're deciding to stay small. This home would be elevated, of course, in compliance with St. Pete Beach, FEMA, and all the, setbacks and everything. It'll be less square footage than what we currently have. Now we have a livable 2,350 square feet. I think this home, the living space, will be about 1,900 or 2,000 square feet. The coastal style of the house, I think, would blend very nicely in St. Pete Beach. We're trying to keep with that character. We're trying to keep as much as we can with not standing out, but keeping the character of the community. And this will be as hurricane-proof as possible. We'll, of course, be using the club breakaway walls, but for the ground floor, but we'll also have a cement building with metal hurricane clips, everything you need to be as hurricane-proof as possible. Basically, that's our idea. That's why I'm here today, to propose that we, as hard as this is, move forward with it as soon as we can. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I don't think I have any questions, but I would say that this is very well thought through. We appreciate when people do that. I like what you're saying. We totally understand. And let's hope your new home is as nice as it sounds like it's going to be.
I didn't mean to jump the gun, but I took the pictures that he originally received after the storm.
Yeah, there wasn't any question about this one really, but yeah. All right, well, with that being said, thank you, Mr. Tonis. I will make a motion to grant the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of 1807 Pasquarel Way, which is demolition number 25014. Thank you.
So we had a motion on the floor. Do you want a second?
Oh, yeah.
Second?
Okay.
Yes, the earlier one, correct. Yes. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Daschle?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Okay, now we go to 4G, a certificate of appropriateness for demolition, number 25010, or for 808 Pasquarel Way.
And Chair, for this one, we do have a recusal.
Yes.
Member Dashiell?
Yes. So I, Danielle N. Dashiell, hereby disclose that on March 6, 2025, a measure came and is coming before the agency that will be of benefit or special gain or loss of my relative, Mary Jo Miklish. This is for certificate of appropriateness for demolition number 25010, 808 Pasquarel Way. And Mary Jo Miklish requests a certificate of appropriateness for demolition.
Okay, thank you. Who's presenting this?
That'll be me. If you could pull up the PowerPoint, please. So this is certificate of appropriateness 25010 for 808 Pasquarel Way. This is a commercial structure with a residence. The applicant's requesting a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the contributing two-story retail building and one-story outbuilding structure at the subject property. Here's some historic photographs you can see on the left from one of the original property cards, circa 1936. This was also one of the structures that was included on the 1989 National Register Historic District designation. List of photographs, you can see it on the right there. And then unfortunately the state today, these were some staff photographs that were taken showing fairly extensive damage to the structure from the outside. There were some additional photographs supplied by the applicant in your packet. Same standards. This is not a locally designated historic resource, so any stay imposed on the issuance of the certificate of appropriateness would be limited to 30 days. Staff recommends approval without delay of the demolition of the contributing structure and contributing garage at the property. It's evident through photos as well as the city's own assessment that the primary structure sustained significant damage from recent hurricanes. Staff finds it unreasonable to require remediation given the extent of damage. The existing use of the property is commercial. That is a permitted use in the zoning district, the CRDEA. The applicant would not be prevented from establishing a similar structure or use on the property when and if they choose to redevelop. There is some additional development potential available to the site over and above what is currently on the site. The applicant could also reestablish upper story residences if they desire. If adequate testimony is provided to the findings of the board, we recommend a motion to approve this case for the demolition of the contributing structures at 808 Paso Grill Way. That's all from staff.
Okay. Before I just want to go back for a moment to make sure, Madam Clerk, on the last one we did, which was 4F. I think Mr. Hurley mentioned we would be waiving the 30-day wait. I just want to make sure, we did, later did the motion, we didn't really say that. I just want to make sure that that's in the record. Okay, good. All right, so let's go back here to 4G. Does anybody want to speak on behalf of this? Not necessary, but just wondering. Okay, one question I have though, Brandon, is because this is, I know it's been used lately as a commercial building, but originally it was a single-family residence. Now, last week we had an issue about the testimony of the owner realizing if they demolish, they can't rebuild as a single-family residence. Have you gotten that information that you need for that?
Well, I believe the applicant is here. He may want to speak, and he is authorized to speak on behalf of this case.
But they did identify as residential over retail already in the testimony.
Okay, I mean, it does say, yeah, I mean, if it's.
They stated that already. It's page 8. Page 8.
We don't need to go through this again. It's not him, it's the owner, which I'm sure it wants to do that as well. I'm just asking from the city's point of view whether we've satisfied that requirement. I know it would be, and I'm willing to go forward with that. I'm just wondering if we're okay on that.
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, I know Mr. Cook will go through that again, I think, since he's not the owner, but I know Ms. Miklich is here, and I assume she recognizes what I'm talking about and realizes. Yes. So there you go. You said yes, so that satisfies the testimonial aspect of it. Okay, anybody else have any questions about this for anyone? All right. I'll make a motion to grant the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of 25010 Paso Grill Way. It's a great old house, but I know it got destroyed, and you know, what else are we going to do? So
I'll second that motion.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Daschle? Oh, I'm sorry. Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And, also, we didn't talk about this. Do you want to do the waiver 30 days on this as well? I don't see any reason why not to,
Waive
considering
30
it's.
days. I would say waive the 30 days.
So let's add that to there. Thank you. All right, let's move on to 4H, certificate of appropriateness for the demolition, case number 25031 of 110 15th Avenue.
Thank you, Chair. You pull up the PowerPoint. This is the last certificate of appropriateness for the day, 110 15th Avenue, case 25031. Samuel Irvin for Johnny Francisco of Tulia Homes Real Estate Development, LLC. Applicant is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the contributing 2-story Hurley Park Apartments at the subject property. Here's some photographs showing the photo from the property card on the left, circa 1936, and a photo on the right from the 2015 Historic Resources Survey. Here's some post-storm photos. This is a contributing structure. Any delay would be limited to 30 days to discuss preservation incentives. Staff recommends approval of the demolition of the contributing residential structure at 110 15th Avenue. Structure does possess both clear internal architectural integrity and a scale appropriate for the area. However, there has been significant damage sustained to the structure, and it is apparent. Staff finds the structure to have sustained substantial damage. Staff does not find it to be viable to preserve the structure. We do request, as with the other cases where the property or the structure itself were in these situations, that the applicant acknowledge that the property cannot be redeveloped with a multifamily structure unless the form, mass, and developed square footage of the structure remains the same after development. We've addressed this through the overlay amendments that may change slightly based on the adoption of the new overlay, but by and large, the living square footage of the structure and the scale and mass would need to stay the same under any kind of redevelopment scenario if a multifamily structure were to be retained. If they were to rebuild with a single family, they would not face those limitations. So with that acknowledgement of that restriction from the applicant, we would request a motion to approve case 25031 for demolition of the residence of the subject property.
Okay, so here we are again. So do we have the owner here?
Yes.
Oh, you are here. Okay, would you come forward? You understand what the question is, right? Or what being posed to you that, you know, it's a multi-use structure now.
Multi-unit.
I'm not going to do.
Oh, okay, there you go. That's,
Brandon's been amazing through the process.
well, all we needed you was to say, not that he was amazing, but say that you're, no.
You understand you can't rebuild a three-unit building on that same plot that's any larger than what it currently
Yeah.
exists.
We're proposing.
If you switch to a single family, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's all we needed to know. Thank you, sir.
Can we please have him state his name for the record? I apologize.
I'm sorry, state your name for the record.
John Francisco.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. Anybody else have any?
Motion.
Go ahead.
I move that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for demolition number 25031 at 110 15th Avenue, waiving 30 days.
I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hogensmith?
Yes.
Member Daschle?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we've gone to 4I, which is a recommendation. Well, let me just do this. Do you want, well, I guess we'll just go forward this. Recommendation of ordinance 2025-07 and 2025-08 to the City Commission. Brandon, you want to talk about this?
So I just have a brief presentation on this, if we could pull it up. So this has been a long time coming. These are the corresponding ordinances for the Paso Grill Historic Overlay District and the CRD 8th Avenue District. That's 2025-07 and 08. Staff made minor changes following what we perceive to be consensus from the January workshop for the Paso Grill Historic Overlay amendments. The first is that all new developments that are accessible from a public alley must provide driveway access solely from that alley. Through the design review process, the Historic Preservation Board will be empowered to provide a waiver rather than a variance of this requirement in design review if the alley is under 15 feet in width. If the applicant is seeking any kind of waiver from this standard and the alleyway is 15 feet or greater, they would need to get a variance that would then move on to the Board of Adjustment after recommendation from the Historic Preservation Board. There was another discussion point that was brought up, and there seemed to be consensus that pools must still meet the required setbacks, but they are permitted to be placed in the front of the residence. So that would be the one exemption to our accessory structure standard that requires accessory structures behind the residence. There were no changes based on that meeting made to the CRD 8th Avenue District. There appeared to be consensus that that ordinance was in a good place. Obviously, one of the major components of this ordinance is the design guidebook. We will be bringing that back to you likely prior to moving this on to the City Commission, but we did want to get this queued up for moving on to the Planning Board. That'll be the next stop, and then we'll have 2 discussions before City Commission. I believe at both of those meetings, I sense that both the board and the commission were relatively happy with the amendments as they were, but if there are any significant changes, we'll certainly bring those back to you. Anything minor, I'll address through a staff report unless the board finds differently. But if anything comes out of the recommendation from the planning board, I'll bring that back to this board to discuss before moving it forward. And then we'll have the design guidebook for you likely in the next 2 to 3 months. Is there anything else that the board would like to discuss on either of these ordinances before?
I have one question with regard to the pool in the front. Does that change any of our guidelines as far as fencing in the front yards with respect to safety requirements for pool fencing and enclosures?
Not directly, or at least not based on the Florida Pool Code. We do allow for fences up to 4 feet in the front yard, and that would be met with a new development, and that would meet the Florida Pool Code. The gate latch would need to be at 54 inches, so that would extend just a bit above that. But again, that setback is based on where the front of the home is established. So if they were to have the gate latch further back toward the side of the house, that would be fine.
Okay, question I have, and I think you said it, but I just want to clarify a little bit because I'm concerned. I want to get more clarification about the timing of this. And so the next thing we're going to do without doing anything is go to the planning board. Is that right?
Correct.
So we're not going to have a design guidebook for the planning board. They're just going to look at what we have done so far, basically.
It would be based on the code amendments. We will bring the guidebook back to you before this moves
No,
on.
I understand that. And so, but obviously we can't go in front of the city commission to get this improved until the guidebook is in play. Or can we, with the condition that the guidebook would be forthcoming?
Given that there's requirements in the ordinance to comply with the guidebook or to show how a structure is meeting the design guidebook requirements, I would at least like for it to go, that would need to be in place and accepted by the board prior to second reading, so prior to adoption. But it could be possible that we could have first reading prior to.
But it would have to be before second reading anyway.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so obviously what I'm getting at is, you know, the quicker we could get this done, the better, especially with all the natural, you know, demolitions and changes that are going on down there. But you're estimating it might be a couple months before we can get the guidebook together.
I think if we were to have it in between first and second reading, that might work well. I would.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was thinking probably about 2 to 3 months for the guidebook.
Okay. Is there any, and I know you're super busy, so I'm not, you know, not at all challenging your, you know, work ethic by any means, but is there anything people on the board can do to help facilitate the speeding up of that process? Because, I mean, would a workshop or something, it doesn't have to be a workshop, but, you know, and again, you're the expert on this, you know, we have a couple already previous kind of guidebooks that'll give us a lot of guidance. I guess that's why they're guidebooks. But, you know, I just would hate to wait 2 or 3 months before we can get some of this done with the rate of new homes being, you know, either built and old homes being knocked down and stuff. So any suggestions or we can think to try to accelerate this? Does the city, I don't say they can bring somebody in. I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking.
So our consultant, Tara Salmieri, is going to be handling the guidebook. Right. She has provided these and developed these guidebooks for other communities, which is why she's able to get it done at the rate she is. What I believe I can probably bring back next month is the basis that she'll be using for the guidebook. She already has some of that information available, so I can share it with the board and maybe just get a preliminary go ahead on that, just to make sure that we're going the right direction with the book. So when we bring it back to you, there may not need to be extensive changes that there would be otherwise.
Well, I'm wondering, and I'm not only speaking for myself, okay, so I don't know about the rest of the board, but if they all agree that this is kind of I guess one of the good things is Tara isn't a beach resident, so she maybe doesn't have to deal with all the hurricane mess that the rest of you had, you know, or that you have on your plate. But could or should it be a situation where we could meet in 2 weeks, or instead of a month, or in 6 weeks or something, just on that thing to try to move that along? I mean, I'm serious when I say I think every week can make a difference, you know. I'm just wanting, do you all agree with me on that? That we want to push this as fast as we can.
Well, we have momentum now, and this has been, what, 2.5 years in the making, and
Yeah, I mean, I think if we hadn't had the hurricane, I think we would already have done this. Wouldn't you agree with that? But, everything got pushed back because of that. But because of the hurricane, there's a lot of new things happening that, to preserve, to whatever degree we can preserve the historic nature down there, we'd rather do it as quick as we can after this.
I can coordinate with the clerk's office on that. In terms of staffing, we'll just need to make sure that it can work out for a special meeting, but I wouldn't have any issue with that.
I mean, if we have to do that, and you can, certainly we can have a talk about that too, but does everyone kind of agree that if we can accelerate this, that's a good thing?
I think it's of utmost importance, but I also think if Tara, and I'm not sure legally if it would be permissible, but if she could email each of us the basis for the guidebook, just whenever, as soon as she would have it, maybe at her fingertips, and then that way we would have a chance to start looking it over, perhaps gathering our thoughts, because I know you all have so much on your plates, and then maybe, obviously, we can't talk amongst ourselves, but perhaps we could then communicate either back with Tara for any feedback or anyone out of the team, for that matter, just as a thought. I don't know if that's.
That can be done as long as we're not communicating with each other, we're bringing it all in with everybody. Well, we'll listen to council on this one.
I would suggest that the guidebook is distributed, not through Tara, but probably through staff to each person individually, and then you can each submit your feedback to staff to provide to her. But if there's any sort of decision to be made, any action, the board really needs to be together to vote on that. And so that's what I would be concerned about. And so
Yeah, no, for sure. I get that. I think, as Danielle's point is, we would be preloaded to talk about these things as opposed to.
I think it would be a better idea to just have the items that each of you want to discuss ready for a meeting where everybody can discuss that all at once. And if you guys had a consensus on holding another meeting now, then we could organize that and then.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
But I think it would be better to discuss it out in the open in the public.
Sure. So the suggestion would be, or we could potentially do it in this fashion. Tara could provide whatever information she has or will have in the short term to staff. Staff provides that to us. We then have a meeting where we talk about that for the first time, but we already know what Tara's already done. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. I think that makes sense. So it's just going to be a matter, though, if you get in contact with Tara to find out when she's comfortable maybe passing that stuff along. And then if we can just go ahead and pass it along, then at that point, probably by the next meeting, we'll know whether we need to set a quicker meeting. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
All right. Good. Thank you.
I have a question about the CRDEA. I may be misreading this, but in section 40.8, building height, it states that it should not exceed 35 feet above grade except for provided for elevation structures. And when you go down to H on page 370, it turns around and backs up on itself.
So, and I think that's what we had discussed with the board previously, the 35 feet height from
So
grade.
it has no teeth in it. So they can build 35 feet above minimum base flood elevation. Again.
Cite those to me again, Sean, please, so I can follow you here.
Okay, so the item that is, where's the maximum height? I just lost it. Section 40.8, building height, has a whopping one sentence that refers to section 40.414. And when you go to 40.14, item H, it basically says that you can do whatever you want.
So I don't believe that was the intent. I'll just.
I know it wasn't the intent.
Yeah, right.
What's in H is for those structures that are built.
It allows anything that can get built above base flood elevation can go 35 feet in the air above base flood elevation, which brings us back to the 40 some odd feet that we were trying to get away from.
That is only if they don't make the first floor habitable. So if they're not using it for commercial space, or if this were a standalone lodging facility where it has to be elevated and the ground floor is only used, for example, for parking or storage, that would allow for that recessed upper floor, the 10-foot recessed upper floor. I'm sorry, I believe this was discussed, but if that's just something that we just need
We
to
did discuss it, it's just, it didn't read this way the last time I saw it.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, I recall kind of how Brandon had it. For example, there's nothing like that right now that exists down there. And so this would almost, I think we were talking about what would be an example of where H could kick in. And that's basically what you just said. If it was like a lodging where they had the first floor was open, wasn't being commercially used, it was being used for parking or storage or whatever.
That's correct. We don't allow standalone multifamily in this district, so the only option would be for a lodging building where they chose to not have the ground floor as a flood-proofable ground floor, so one that was developed at grade. If they were to choose to only build a lodging development and they were to elevate the lowest level of that lodging development to the required design flood elevation, they would be permitted that additional height that's lost by not building at grade. However, the upper story would need to be recessed 10 feet. If the board is conceptually okay with that, I can work on cleaning this up and bring it back to you.
What's the difference, what's the difference? I understand the 10-foot setback, so that puts the height back further, which aesthetically is
The
good.
upper level, yes.
But how many feet higher is it than the 30? I know it's in general than the 35 feet over grade.
It would be 5 to 6 feet taller, measuring to the top.
Our better part of 10, which is what we were trying to get around.
What's that?
Or the better part of 10 feet, which is what we were trying to get around. We have one building that's on 8th Avenue that was built after this was developed, and we realized the loopholes in it. Now we're back to the same height.
But I would say for a development like the Berkeley, they would not, if it were to be developed today under this standard, because of the ground floor restaurant, they would not benefit from that additional 6 feet, because this is to avoid, and it was discussed with the attorney at the time, to avoid a taking where someone has to elevate their structure, and because of that, they're losing 5 to 6 feet off the top of their structure. This was what we came up with as a ability to preserve that and not take that 6 feet away, but also to not incentivize someone to have a ground floor and then get that additional 5 to 6 feet at the upper level because they chose to flood proof instead of elevate.
And so again, in practical matters, you'd have to have somebody who had a commercial space or not multi-family, but a lodging, where they would take the first floor and say, we're just going to make it all parking. Now, can they do a combination of lobby and parking? Or they couldn't do that? It would have to be entirely non-use, open in the bottom.
Right. It's the first actual floor of the structure would need to be elevated above above the design flood in order to take advantage of the additional 5 to 6 feet in height.
And by the
But there
design,
would have to be, by ADA compliance, some sort of access at grade.
no, I understand that. I'm just trying to think of the practical.
I'm trying to think of the practical appliances to it down the road when somebody finds the way to do it.
Yes,
We're going to be back at 40 feet, 45 feet.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think I understood what Brandon, when he's just talking about, speaking to an attorney about the taking aspect of it. So here, I guess, is where the rub exists. So even though, what did you call the base flood? Not elevation, but what did you call?
The design flood.
Designs, because the design flood includes extra feet, right?
1 additional foot, correct.
So a person could, do they have to build by the design flood? I mean, I guess the practical matter, you can't use a parking garage if it's only 6 feet high.
That's why it's poorly written.
Right, that's what I'm saying, and so, I don't know how, we get around, so I guess we're talking about that distinction between 5 or 6 feet and 10 feet, you know, which is the taking aspect you're talking about, is if they decided to flood-proof the first floor, then they would be limited to 35 feet over grade.
And again, I thought that we were limiting it to total 35 feet, and they were allowed to have the base flood elevation be flood-proofed. However, they only got 2 stories of other space.
Right, but.
Which is what the goal of 8th Avenue was originally.
Yes, and I agree with that. The issue would be, though, it's zoned to allow other kind of structures that don't necessarily exist right now. And the argument, I guess, would be, if you, can we force someone to flood-proof their first floor when they don't want to use it for that purpose, when they don't want it to be flood-proofed, when they want to use it as a, you know, a parking garage, for example?
For sake of argument, based on our current situation since September, it's going to cause people to make different decisions. And they have the ability to flood-proof on their ground level to meet FEMA requirements and still have their regular construction or regular building above. So why all of a sudden are we giving away 10 feet on a place that we said we don't want to give away 10 feet to go ahead and do this?
No, I agree with you. I don't want to do that, but I guess the question could be.
35 feet above place, 35 feet above base flood elevation or base, you know, whatever we want to call it today, is not what our goal was. Our goal was 25 feet minus 10.
No, I agree. My question is to you, Brandon, is can we just make it part of the ordinance that they have to flood-proof the first floor and then just eliminate this option?
Well, with the standalone lodging, we could not require that because it's not an option for lodging. That's considered residential in terms of what FEMA's looking at. So if they were to develop what is currently a permitted use, a standalone lodging facility, they would not have the option to flood-proof the ground floor.
But we have the ability to do residential over retail all day long. Places, stores, all through the area are being rebuilt after the flood because they were able to flood-proof according to FEMA rules and still be slab on grade.
And they will still have that option for those who have retail or office at the ground level and almost any kind of commercial.
But we're opening the door for them to do whatever they want because we already have that in place. Why are we giving them 10 feet?
Do we need to spell out what?
I guess that's what we need to do.
So residents over retail and then a definitive as to what's applicable if they want to do something in hospitality.
Well, again, they do residents over retail. They have the ability to get it FEMA approved on ground level because they're commercial. So why are we giving them 10 more feet?
I would agree.
Well, I agree too, except for the way this is written. Are we giving?
This goes back to the original conversation we had almost 3 years ago, where they said we can't take away property rights.
I know.
But at the end of the day, it was not conceived the way it was written. It was the way it was interpreted that was not correct. And now we're trying to figure out the interpretation, trying to get it narrowed down to where we can go ahead and work within these constraints. And again, we just open the door again.
So how do we go about changing this?
Well, we went through this for 2 years and it didn't get changed. So obviously a workaround is not working out.
Well, again.
Is there a requirement that there's pedestrian grade level access to commercial space in that district? That it has to be at grade level?
Not necessarily based on what's written. It would make sense for the vast majority of developments, residential or lodging over commercial, which we obviously have along 8th Avenue. The intent was just for this to, plan for those scenarios where that would not apply, but we could probably tighten down the language somewhat. I don't want to hold up the Division 20 changes because I think there is consensus on those from what I heard. If this is something you'd like me to work on and bring back next month, I can maybe send out the language changes to the board early in advance of the meeting and get feedback and come back.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good idea, but I appreciate that. I guess where I'm going with this is it seems like this was a carve out for just a very special thing.
That is.
But Sean is, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing, you're saying this carve-out could maybe be used by everybody.
That's my concern. It needs to be tightened up.
Okay. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I mean, that was the goal of figuring CRDEA.
Okay, but are you saying that the carve-out should be eliminated, or the carve-out should still exist, but it has to be tightened up?
I need to figure out what it really means, because originally we said 35 feet minus BFE.
Right.
Which roughly was BFE plus 25. Now they're saying 35 plus BFE. And we're back to the same place that we were, the words never changed.
Well, except for I think, and maybe it needs to be tightened up, it's under the auspices that they're not flood-proofing and doing what they normally would do to have a
The point is,
residence.
you can do that to any commercial or retail existence on base elevation. So what is the
We're
point?
taking away any property rights by having a hard stop on height.
Exactly.
They just come in and this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. And
Well,
this is
that's
height
the
at
argument
which you
been
can
for
do
over
it.
2
We're not
years.
taking away your property rights. These are your property rights.
Well, yeah, I think we all said that from the very beginning. We thought it was as simple as just saying, we want everything to be the same height as it always has been. And then, of course, the
But
problem
we just
is-
gave away BFE plus 35.
Yeah, but then FEMA came about and that made it impractical for people to build two.
FEMA was around when it first was adopted, and it was.
No, I'm
it
talking
was-
about to match the historic nature of 8th Avenue, which is all pre-FEMA.
Again, residential over retail, you're allowed to go ahead and waterproof, flood-proof the retail aspect on the ground floor. So why are we giving away another 10 feet? I can name restaurant after restaurant, store after store that got flooded during Helene that has rebuilt on slab, meeting FEMA requirements. Why do we need to give them, do we need to elevate all them and give them 10 feet also?
No, and I think this carve-out doesn't include that, but I'm not saying that language
It
can't be
opens,
tightened up.
it opens a door for something like that to happen.
I mean, you know me, I'm all about not going
I know
height,
you are.
So I agree if I'm not quite on the same page as you are, but I understand your concern, and I think Brandon understands as well that what our concerns are, that we don't want to open the door with this.
It's a loophole
Subsection
that can
H,
get
yes.
exploited. And we need to figure out a way to make sure the loophole does not get exploited.
Well, I kind of circle back to Tia where it just says 35 feet, period, end of story.
It's a hard stop.
Well, again, that was the whole point of our conversation over 2 years ago.
Yeah,
It
and
was
then
25 feet
none of it
above
you can go
BFE.
higher if you do a 10-foot setback and use it for something else on the bottom. I think
Again,
just
it
always
was
eliminate it.
25 feet over BFE. And that's what we were trying to do based on what was going on with residential in Passing Row also. And it slipped in again, and that's what I'm irritated by. We fought against this, and it's back in the thing.
Okay, I agree, yeah, let's push on with section 20, and Brandon, if you will try to work your magic on section 40 for the next meeting, that would be super great.
Could I get a formal recommendation on Division 20, please?
Yes, I guess, do we need to have a motion on that, or just say?
If you could just make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve recommendation of ordinances 2025-07 and 2025-08 to the City Commission.
No.
Okay, except for, no, what we're doing, we're taking one of those away, right?
2025-08, we're trying to hold back for a
Yeah,
minute.
so the motion would be, yes, is 25,
Just 07.
yes, and then we will,
I amend my motion that we approve recommendation of ordinance 2025-07 to the City Commission.
I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Member Daschle?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And then, not that we need a motion for this, but for 2025-08, we'll bring that up next month at meeting.
Yes.
Okay. All right, good, thank you, Sean. Okay, now we have 4J, recommendation of Hurley Park design to the City Commission.
Good afternoon, Board. Mandy Edmonds, Acting Recreation Director.
Hi, Mandy, how are you?
Good, thank you. I have a quick presentation for you, if we can bring that up. Okay, so this is going to be a presentation on the Hurley Park Playground proposal. As everybody knows, that we've been going on with this proposal probably now for over 10 years, so we're trying to move everything forward. So a little bit of a project history here. So it started back in 2015 when Hurley Park Playground was removed. 2019, we had a community input meeting where basically commission approved commission approval received to restore to the original condition. So Hurley Park, when they were under construction, we approved to give back to the original. 2020, the playground was, the whole park design, I think, was brought to Historic Preservation Board, and then they approved restoration back to the original condition, including the playground. Commission meeting held announcing the dog park concept with approval. 2021, park restoration complete without a playground. 2022, meetings with staff to add a playground and funding options. And then 2024, Montessori raises funds towards purchasing a playground with resident support of the project. This would be a public-private partnership. Funding. So where we're at now, we did have $140,000 budgeted this year to install this playground. The quoted playground and surfacing costs came in at $99,540.60. The Montessori contribution with an MOU agreement is $37,500.
Can I stop you? What does the MOU mean?
Memorandum of Understanding.
Okay.
Okay. The amount needed from the capital improvement budget will be $62,040.60, which does leave a balance in our CIP program of $77,959, which would go towards other priority projects in our CIP budget. This is the playground design and location. So the features include a hammock, slides, mini climber, loop ladder, lemonade game counter, and umbrella roofing. The fall height is listed. The capacity is 37 children, and the age group is for 18 months to 12 years. The location is going to be in the southwest corner of the existing pavilion, between the pavilion and the basketball, pickleball court, behind the left field fence. So you'll see that in the diagram below. It's in that small area directly behind that fencing.
So it is not the way it looks in our photos.
Yeah, ours is
back?
on the
Ours shows that you're removing the basketball court, pickleball courts, and putting it there.
Mine didn't say that.
no.
I thought you had it over to the west another bit, but
Well, her picture does show that. I don't
I'm
know what
sorry.
page this is
I don't
on.
know. I'm just looking at this. I'm looking at her presentation.
I'm at page 405 of our presentation, which shows it removing the basketball court and et cetera.
It should be just adjacent to the basketball court. We're not removing
According
anything.
to your production on the screen, it is.
Yes.
I was just concerned that they're different.
And well, I mean, but since we're on that location issue right now, and I had the same kind of questions, I thought it looked like it was in a different place. And I walked down there and pasted off earlier, not that that means anything. There's there's enough room there.
There is. So when we actually did the scope of work and we had the contractors come out and do the bids, they all viewed the location and they were well aware of where we're going to be placing that playground.
And I will just say this, because to me, I know you probably had the same conversation, it seemed like if it was moved north, there's a just directly north, there's really a much more of an open area in that there's no power poles and trees and stuff like that. And I guess I'm wondering, and it's also close to Montessori, although they do have a playground there as well, and I'm just thinking, would it be better in that location further north so you're a little bit removed from the adults that are playing pickleball or basketball and the things that adults can say to children, in front of children's ears?
We did consider that, but our ultimate goal too was to keep a large amount of green space so that we can have other activities. So that's why we chose the location closest to the pickleball court.
Yeah, I don't personally have any heartburn with this. I don't want, you all went through all that.
Right.
I figured you had. Okay.
So that concludes the presentation. Do you have
Okay,
any
I have another
other
question for you. Sorry, I mean, only because I'm intrigued about, and you'll find out if you stick around later when we talk about another discussion, but Montessori raised some money, and then, and the memo of understanding basically is saying what? Is it saying
So the MOU is going to outline that money raised will go towards the installation, the purchasing and the installation of this playground.
Okay.
After that, the city will be responsible for all maintenance costs.
Okay, and so, and the way that would work, this is money that's Montessori has raised, and that goes towards that, which is great, and there's no repayment aspect or anything like that. This is just a donation from the private sector.
Correct. So we would, what we would do is we would have that cash in hand before we went forward with the purchasing of this.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'm just, like I said, later, we might be talking about something else. I was kind of trying to get a feel for how that works. All right.
And I'm assuming that Montessori's on board with this playground and what it looks like, and
Yes,
all of it?
they are. We actually have representatives here today from Montessori, as well as our playground representative. So if you had any direct questions for either of them, we can address that.
No, I mean, I don't know if anyone does. I mean, this is really just for informational purposes for us, I believe, right? Which we thank you very much that you're bringing in on us in on this.
Does Montessori want to speak about it?
You don't have to. You can if you want. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Very good. Thank you, Mandy.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so now we are on to section 5, discussion items.
We do need a motion on that one.
Oh, we do. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'll make a motion that we recommend the Hurley Park design to the City Commission.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Member Young?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hawkinsmith?
Yes.
Member Dashiell?
Yes.
Member Hurley?
Yes.
Chair Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, very good. Okay, 5A, design review number 25034 for 106 18th Avenue.
Thank you, Chair. If we could pull up the staff PowerPoint. This is a new residence built to the house medium standards proposed for 106 18th Avenue. The owner is J. Dennis Johnson, Jr. Oh, I think I clicked out of it. I'm sorry. There we go. So here's the site plan showing the development. You can see on the right side of the screen is a garage that's accessible from the alleyway. The applicant is also proposing a turf block parking space accessible from 18th Avenue. That will be on the west side of the structure. There is an existing curb cut on the east that is being closed, and that is the location of where the porch will be. They are showing some landscaping at the front of the structure, as well as on the sides. That does meet the minimum landscaping requirement. That was one of the 2 design review comments, which I'll get to in a moment. Otherwise, the structure does meet the setbacks for the house medium style of development. They are showing the garage closer than 15 feet to the alleyway for the structure itself. When it's located within 15 feet, it typically needs to only be garage space, and they do show that on floor plans as being met. So you can see here the front elevation of the structure. It is compliant with the height requirement, which is 32 feet to the highest point of the roof from the design flood elevation, and they are also measuring 28 feet to the midpoint of the sloped roof. The midpoint of the sloped roof is a little bit below that height maximum that would be permitted. Here's some renderings showing the front and the alleyway elevation. Staff consultant has performed a design review. They have the following comments. They wanted some additional landscaping at the front to mask the elevated portion of the structure, and both of these comments have been sent to the applicant. They also asked that the material or scoring surrounding the pool at the base of the structure should be better integrated with the elevated portion of the home. Staff had a few limited comments related to the zoning review, nothing that's going to change the design of the development. We just wanted to point them out at this stage. What I mentioned before regarding the single-level garage, they are currently meeting the setbacks. However, there may be a future limitation on extension of any kind of living space above the garage if it's within that rear 15-foot setback. The frontage parking space shall provide for at least 20 feet of depth to allow for a vehicle to be fully located on private property. Under the current zoning code, they are allowed access from that frontage. And the lot is depicted as very close to its minimum green space requirements. Significant modifications may require removal of existing impervious and semi-pervious material on the site. So we don't ask for a board motion on these, but we do ask for direction if there are things that you feel can be made to better ensure the design of the structure with the surrounding neighborhood. We ask for your input. If you'd like us to bring this item back to you after modifications have been made, if any, we'd be happy to do so. If not, we can include the redesign plans, if any, as a informational item moving forward. So that is all from staff. I believe the applicant's present.
Hi, Dennis Johnson, 4021 West Barcelona Street, Tampa. If you have any questions. Just a quick comment on the landscaping. We purposely limited the landscaping on the rendering so you could see the house. We have about a $30,000 landscape budget on a 50 by 100 foot lot, so there's going to be 10 times the amount of landscaping. So that is not even an issue at all. I don't see any future significant improvements at all. There's nowhere really we would ever add on to the house. We have a pool area. We have the alley access garage. There's really nowhere to, I don't see any additional, for 50, 60, 70 years, I don't see where you would ever add anything onto that house, possibly. So it is a tight site. The house is not that large. I think the main house is 2,980 square feet or something. It's 2-story. As far as the material, we are required breakaway walls. We are going to have to put the vents in, which we did not show on because we don't have placement of ventings yet. We are within 300 feet of the coastal construction line, but we're in AE 10. So we're still going to have to do pilings and do breakaway and flow through. So I'm not sure exactly, other than stucco, I'm not sure what we would do. I don't think it would be reasonable to do any kind of siding on that lower portion. We were thinking of maybe some kind of coquina, potentially. That gets a little challenging with events, but if you guys have any great suggestions, we'll listen.
Well, I think you answered a lot of them by saying you're doing a lot more landscaping. I mean, that makes sense, and obviously, as much as that can be kind of covered. The one thing, first off, let me say this just so you understand. I think your design's nice. I'm loving the fact that you're putting the garages in the back, and that's kind of a pet peeve.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah, me too.
And so, but I noticed you have a parking space in the front, which under the current rules you can have. That's what we were just talking about. Some of the amendments we're trying to make is to make all the parking be in the back so we don't have cars in the front yard. There's more landscaping, and there's not a curb cut. I know, and I'm just throwing that out there, I know that on 18th, you can only park on one side of the street, which is your side.
Correct.
I know that the lot already has a curb cut from some time in the past.
It does, the driveway.
The eastern side of the lot, so you're proposing to move this to the western side, but I'm just going to say, I really wish you didn't have a parking.
You're not really losing one because we're switching, and then if we lose our cut, you get one more spot on the street, so you're getting one spot either way.
Except for you don't have a car in the front yard and lack of and no landscaping there.
Yeah, but when you see how the stuff we do.
That's why I prefaced it with, I think your design is nice, and this is just a minor thing, but I think to be true to myself and what we've been talking about the last couple of years, I just have to mention it, okay? The idea being that, and I guess, honestly, you're from the standpoint that house that you knocked down did not have access, did not have a driveway to the alley, did it?
Did not.
So it was always...
It was all front.
It always had that curb cut.
It was. It did. It was existing. Yeah, we're just shifting it, basically.
No, I understand that. I'm just thinking from the standpoint...
And we're going to use a porous material, so, whether it be shell or whatever they want.
Well, I can't tell you what to do. I mean, you can do all these things. This is just the part of this where we try to persuade you, okay?
I just think parking is...
I'm not going to say I'm going to win the argument, but...
You know better than anybody, parking is an incredible banana. If you can do a nice-looking parking spot, it blends in.
But just so you understand, the reason, especially further south where there's parking on both sides of the street, we've been having new homes that don't use the alley, and they put the garage facing the front.
Yeah, I know.
They take away parking spaces.
Right.
So one of the things we're trying to amend in the new ordinance that's coming through is stopping that. So the front of the houses are still the front of the houses. They don't have garages, which you don't have placed in the front. That's what I said. I appreciate that.
Right.
But they also don't have a curb cut because, you know, again, it takes away some of the parking. But that's my argument.
Okay.
More power to you, you know, I'm just saying. Okay.
Well, so where the curb cut is, behind that would be, is that the pool?
Yes, there's going to be fencing with landscaping, and that is the pool.
So then it truly will be a parking space.
It's basically just if somebody comes, like, we don't even have anywhere to, somebody wants to deliver something, or somebody wants to come over for an hour, or there's no way, I mean, we have 2 spots off the alley. There's nowhere to park on the alley once you go inside our garage. There's no space on the alley. So,
Just, sorry to interrupt you. So, and this is obviously, this is something that you can commit to, or if someone bought the house after you. You're not intending to use your private cars there necessarily.
no, absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're saying basically it should be empty most of the time.
Correct. Yeah, it's not our spot. It's,
And the side stairs, is that to a second, I guess, like wing?
is a back entrance, yeah. You can come off the pool and go up to the main level lanai where the cook, outdoor kitchen is, and then you can go spiral stair up to the second floor, and then you can continue to the rooftop. So it's basically, it's another entrance to the second floor. Instead of coming all the way to the front of the house and then going in,
Sure, I see.
just a quicker way to get upstairs, basically.
To the rooftop, which is still below 34 feet. Thank you very much.
Yes, we kept it at 32. So, it's not a big rooftop deck, yeah.
All right.
We worked a long time on this to try to
I
make
remember when you came in for the demolition permit
Yeah.
a few years ago, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is definitely an improvement of what was there.
I love that old house, but it was a mess.
Had black mold, that was the killer, and then
It had vines growing through the
it had
walls.
settled and all the trusses had collapsed, and
Sure.
so it was unfortunately not salvageable, but
So this is just for informational purposes in a way, but you said we could bring it back if we wanted to. Does anybody see any reason, based upon the discussions we've had, that we need to look at this again?
I've got a silly question, and I'm not able to find it with a packet, and that is the 20-foot setback and where it puts it in relation to the sidewalk, because the city of St. Pete Beach has been just raging on people that are encroaching on the sidewalk.
do you have that in front of you? I got it in here somewhere, what our setbacks are.
I'm trying to find it, and I'm not doing a very good job. Usually I can read plans, but I don't seem to find
I
it.
know we did whatever we, let's see. I think are we 20 to the house and 12 to the porch? Is that what it is? Does that sound right?
You have the stairs at the front that are at 7.3, and then you have the front of the house at 10 where it's required to be, so.
No, okay.
That gives us enough room that he can clear the sidewalk, so we're just not getting complaints from the city, because I've got 3 houses right now that were built years ago, and now the city complains about the fact that our back bumpers cover the sidewalk.
Well, that was one of the items that I mentioned that.
Oh, that's on the parking.
Oh, you're talking about the
Gotcha.
parking space.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Parking
Gotcha.
space, it will need to meet the 20 feet to fit a vehicle, yes.
Yeah.
And so it's the 20 feet above the sidewalk.
We can adjust the fence back. so which
It's,
is- yeah.
it's splitting hairs.
Okay.
It's just that I've got so many complaints recently over it.
You have to buy a short car. Only visitors have to have short cars.
Don't bring the exhibition in.
No parking, no parking.
We only get one visitor. There's nowhere else to
The RV
park.
out there.
One very small visitor.
Exactly, with a coachman car, right?
Okay, well, so that, we don't see any reason to bring this back then, is that fair to say? Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
So can we permit? What's next? We can?
You got a permit.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 5B, design review number 24095 at the home located at 1303 Gulf Way.
Pull the PowerPoint back up, please. This is 1303 Gulf Way, case 24095. Applicant owner is Daniel Curia for Frederick and Odine Ross. The applicant is requesting, as with the prior structure, a house medium built structure, standards of the Paso Grill Overlay District. So here's the site plan. There have been some modifications, but this was the one that was published with your staff report. It is very well extensively landscaped in the front. It is also parking from the rear, which is a benefit. They do have 2 pathways out to the west side on Gulf Way, and then they have some stepping stones on the north side. Staff has some comments regarding the encroachment into the southern side, but otherwise, all of the parking is to the east. You can see here the renderings, isometric renderings. And here is the side elevations for this structure. Staff's design consultant, who is not present, had significant number of requests for correction of plans submitted in early February. They had marked up a previous plan set, but I did speak with them earlier this week. They did find these comments to pertain to the existing revised development that was published with your packet. Their first comment was that there was no private frontage as required by code, which is a porch or stoop. I did want to clarify that is pending code language that a porch or stoop needs to be provided for these type of developments. There is the private frontage option for the common yard in place currently. The applicant has it extensively landscaped, and I haven't gone through the details, but I believe that they would probably meet that common yard frontage standard if they need to do so. She had asked for she had asked that some identification be placed on the plan, particularly for the voids on the frontage of the structure. She felt that it did not meet the code intent for natural breaks in the mass. She did ask for demonstration that the windows meet the similarity standard in the code. The bottom of the structure does not appear to be supporting of the two upper floors architecturally. I did send the architect a example of one that I felt would meet that, but we are in discussion on that item. And she felt that there was a disparity between the style of the ground level as well as the upper two floors, which do not meet the code requirement. Zoning staff had very limited comments. The only comments were that the height of the parapet appears to exceed the 28 feet permitted. In Pastor Grill, the parapet height is included in the overall height of the flat roof structure. However, we did find the overall height, the 32-foot mark, to be compliant with the maximum height requirement. Our other comments were that balconies are not permitted in side yards, and the pool catch basin will need to be removed from the front setback. It does need to meet that 10-foot front setback.
Okay, so
that's all I had.
Okay, to try to clarify a little bit of that. So I know there was a number of things that you put down that need to be looked at. What we have seen here, though, is this an updated version that addresses some of those issues, or it doesn't address those issues?
Those were still remaining comments, and again, I wanted to point out that multiple of those comments were just identification based. Our reviewer just wanted those to be identified in the plans. The comments regarding the frontage, let me get back to those. The secondary frontage, the similarity between windows unless demonstrated by the applicant, and the architectural support between the first floor and the upper two floors. Those were items that the design reviewer felt were not met. The applicant can show those items on the plans, and we can continue to discuss those with her, but those were remaining items based on the current plans.
Okay, so, we're getting this as a discussion item, right? And I guess I'm trying to find out, are we in the middle of the river here, or are we getting to the shore? I mean, is this a little premature for us? Are we going to bring this back again once the staff's questions have been answered? I mean, I hate to be looking at something and having us make some sort of, even for informational purposes, and not know if these, I mean, I have to, I think we all have to go by what staff says on these kind of things. And so this appears to be incomplete at this stage, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but, seems like there's some significant stuff that I would say, why are we getting this today if there's things that have to be due? Because I can ask some, some questions and we can get some answers, but, first, let me say I appreciate the fact that this is brought in front of us for informational purposes so we get an idea of what's going on. So don't get me wrong there. But secondarily, if things are in midstream, we're really not getting the information we really need. So do we just need to reset this to another date where those where we don't have these questions, so we know what we're actually looking at.
Or perhaps if there's anything in addition to these corrections that we want to question or have addressed or consider.
Well, but when I read there's a disparity between the style of the first and upper two floors, which does not appear to meet LDC section 20.2. I'm not, I don't know what that means, really, necessarily. And, so identify voids on the preliminary axonometric view. I don't even know what that word means, as it does not appear to meet the code intent for natural breaks in the mass. I don't really know what that means. And so if that question was answered, does it change what this house looks like significantly? I don't know. So, to me, this strikes me as just having a lot of, I don't know who's reviewing it. It doesn't make a difference, really, but the person who's reviewing it from the staff obviously has some significant questions.
Chairman, if you would look at page 435, it shows the western elevation of the home, and I think that's what most of the questions are about. It does show differences in finishes, it shows differences in windows and et cetera.
Differences?
In style.
Style.
Style, shape, and size, symmetry.
It does throw things sideways a little bit, but we're not architects.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, but you're saying that seems to be a concern that staff has.
Right.
Yes. And so, right, so.
I just want you to be able to see the elevation that I think they're talking about.
Well, I agree, because like under the pool, what is that?
It's going to be where the pool is. The 6 foot of pool is going down there.
Yeah, but is it behind a wall, or is it?
Behind a wall.
What kind of, just a blank wall, like a garage, or is
As
it?
opposed to the sea monkey style of the.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, versus having a big window in front of your steel.
You can do
pool.
that, yeah. My point is, and maybe, I don't think I'm being out of line here from the folks on this, are you comfortable with seeing what we need to see?
I'm not sure. I'm just trying to get to where we can all talk about what we're looking at. And again, window design versus sliding glass door design, I think is what we're looking at from the elevation.
I think what we're going to see if staff recommendations are followed is something that looks very different than what we're seeing today.
I don't know. And it strikes me too that it's not really a staff recommendation particularly. If they say it doesn't fit in the LDC, then it doesn't fit in the LDC. So it may just be a design that won't work.
Right, there is some deference to the architects in these type of reviews. If they demonstrate that something's adequately met, our design reviewer, will take that into consideration. But the reason why I brought this forward to you at this stage is because I have been working with the applicants for some time now. We've had the plans, I think, in-house since last year. And we wanted to get the board's input because these are things that, on the zoning side, I have very few comments, but from the design reviewer, there may be extensive changes, and we just wanted you to have your input at this stage. If you would like us to bring this back, either when it gets to permitting, prior to that, we'd be happy to do so. We just wanted to get your input. If there's anything else other than what staff has already shared that you feel should be taken into account.
I would want to consider, at least during the review process, that the neighbor's visual impediment would be considered. I don't know how far back I see where it sits on the subject lot, but I don't know how that is in reference to the neighbors on either side of it, and how does that impede their visual atmosphere?
When we changed to our new design thing, we went ahead and gave them 20 feet setback instead of 25.
I assume this is built on
That's why I just said consideration.
This is built on
It hadn't worked in the past.
I know.
This is currently designed under the Pascal overlay, as opposed to.
That's the intent instead of the
Right.
standard.
So the house to the north of it is built under the overlay as well. I know that. And the house to the south of it is recessed in 1 story or 1.5 stories.
Stable plumbing.
Yeah. So it's a whole different thing. And I think you know what we're getting at, because the house 2 up from you was built back, and the next house blocks there. So right.
Matching the
Right.
immediately next door to it.
Well, I just feel that I'm kind of spinning my wheels if I start asking questions about stuff when,
Answer them.
well, I know, but see, like, do you know what, when they said a minute ago, what was that? You had that on the screen, what the staff? Yeah.
The axonumerical.
She called out the sheet, so it's.
Yeah, it's an axonometric view where we're presenting the house from the 3D perspective, and she's questioning the amount of openings on the elevations. We have been discussing potentially providing some fencing similar to, landscape or some sort of fenestration, not fenestration, but fencing, kind of like what you showed me on that other residence. Still up for discussion with the owner to see if that would be agreeable. And the fenestration, we still have to work through that. I ideally would love to meet with the person who's making the comments.
Absolutely.
We don't know where she's coming from.
Right.
We'd love to have that opportunity to discuss where she's coming from, and maybe we can meet that out.
And sorry, just for the record, I don't think you've identified yourself, so let's, if you'll do that.
Sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
Daniel. My name is Daniel. I'm the architect of record for the design, and with me.
And Audine Ross, the owner of the
You're
property.
the owner, okay, so you don't, okay, all right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying makes sense, that you can meet with that person and find that information, and I'm not trying to delay anything or point any blame or anything like that. I just don't think that we have, like I look at this just from what I'm looking at, and the area on the west side that's under, I guess, the edge of the pool in this picture is just like a blank, cement wall?
Yes, the pool's going to be raised so you access it from the second story. And in front of it, we're going to put plants and.
Okay, see, landscaping cures a lot of problems, when you look at these things, but I guess I'd like to.
I believe you mentioned did you mention you eliminated the landscaping from this view just because?
No, that was the other guy.
That was the other gentleman, okay.
But he could have said that, right.
We have they have a big budget on plants. It's going to be nice to
We just
foliage.
don't know where everybody wants things, or I did look up what types we have to have, and they have to fall into certain categories, and I'm quite happy to put as many plants as we need in there.
So then maybe
The intent
everything-
was to put like a raised planter in front of the wall, and then have some pretty
I
plants
got you. Right.
in front of it, so it looks aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, and so that's obviously the concern we have, is we don't get to see that stuff, at least at this stage. And now, is there ultimately, when there's a plan that's settled on, there is actually a landscaping?
Correct, yes.
Can we maybe just see that when that happens? I mean, see when you finally met with these people and done that, and maybe we don't have to have these folks be here?
That would be fine.
You follow what I'm saying? I mean, I hate to have you come back if it's going to all be rectified in some fashion. But I think, we always like to know what's going on in the neighborhood. So if we can kind of get not that we can do a bunch about it, but.
That was the intent of the meeting, is getting initial thoughts. We want to be upfront about what we're doing. Obviously, it's contemporary, and this is a historic overlay district. We want to respect everything that has to do with zoning.
Yeah, I mean, if you open the door there a little bit, I think these contemporary houses are, as nice as they are, I don't know if they really fit in that historical district, but they've been being built, and we don't have any teeth as far as that goes at this moment. I think when we have some changes perhaps to the commission, that this might get tightened up a little bit and not be quite so contemporary, but that's the way the world is right now. So I'm just saying, that's where we're at.
It's much less contemporary than 1207.
Oh, I know, but, I know, but, and this is not designed to be rude or anything like that, but, I know property values and stuff, every house we get is max. I mean, I was surprised, the last guy came in and said, I'm only building.
Reducing.
Yes.
Building a smaller house.
That's as rare as a abominable snowman on the beach, so, so, and in the block you're in, frankly, the two houses next to you, it's already, that's kind of what's going on anyway, so. Okay, well, I think we appreciate you all coming in. Brandon, once there's some things finalized, maybe if you can just give that to us for informational purposes, you all won't have to be back for that. I mean, unless you want to come sit through the afternoon with us again. So does that make sense to everyone? Okay, then thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, now we're on 5C, the historic plaque update. Who's going to handle that?
Just a brief update. We have been speaking with the vendor regarding producing those plaques. We're working on whether or not we can have them individually numbered or not, but we're estimating the cost to probably be somewhere in the range of $100 to $125 per plaque. We're hoping to have everything finalized by next month, so I'll have an update for you then. I just want to let you know we're working on it. So.
Okay, and
I happened to come across some paperwork having to do with the original plaques and where they were ordered, who they were ordered from, and et cetera, and the ability to have the design in place already. I can forward it to the board or to you, whoever is necessary. I don't know if we're going out and finding somebody new, but they had everything all set in place back in 2013.
I don't believe so. I believe Kristen's been working with the original vendor, but if you could send it over just in case, I'd appreciate it.
By all means.
Thank you.
And when you say the 100, 125, that's, I'm just, to be obvious here, but that's going to be the cost to the owner, correct? The city's not.
For the time being, yes.
Yes. Yes, good. Thank you about that, because I do think a lot of these people that are getting the homes designated, let's hope that they ultimately want to do a plaque.
So I do have a question about the numbering. So specifically, Mr. Cadell was here earlier. When he was designated in the past, he had a marker number 35. Will he be able to stay marker number 35, or does he have to move to marker number 170 or something?
That's a good question. I had the same issue with
Member
my
number
office.
1 at the yacht club is a big deal. So maybe member number 35 of the historic preservation is also important.
Could be a selling point.
Yeah.
Again, that's one of the questions I would have brought forward also, is that, I have a plaque on my building. My uncle was, head of the historic board and historic preservation for many, many years. I am now having to recertify, not realizing it till just recently. And I don't want to lose my number 1 status.
No one ever does.
We don't take your number away. You're still on. We do have a recertification number just for tracking purposes, but just like 3401 Casablanca, I believe it's number 4. It was real early, but it's still number 4. That hasn't changed. They've just been recertified for variance purposes. So.
All right, good. Okay, so now I guess we're going on to 5D. That was you, Ms. Nashel, I believe.
Yes. So I just wanted to highlight, unfortunately, as we've all heard, there's so many businesses throughout our city that aren't reopening, like Woody's and so many other places that have just been mainstays. And I think being at the hotel at the Keystone, which thankfully is historically designated, we've had all of our guests come back, thankfully. And we've also picked up new guests that previously would go to other areas. The one thing that I've heard unanimously has been how impressed everyone has been with all of the businesses that have been open and how kind everybody has been. And they didn't anticipate traveling here and having people be nice because of everything everyone has been through. And so just hearing that really made me stop and think. And so I just wanted to highlight in Paso Grill all of the locally owned and operated businesses that are open. So I did them in alphabetical order, so that way I didn't show any favorites. So Bamboozle and ETC on 8th Avenue, Brass Monkey, Coconut Inn, Doty's also on 8th Avenue, Evander Preston's, Eva's Emporium, Havana Inn on the Beach, Frank T. Hurley Real Estate Associates, Island Life, Paso Grill, La Tortuga, Little Room of Art, which just opened this past weekend, Paradise Grill, Paradise Suites, Paradise To Go, which I do have to just say that they are such a wonderful French family and they've worked so hard and they're raising their kids, and it really is an honor to have them as our neighbors.
I agree. They're super, super nice. And I guess Paradise Suites just opened this last week, right?
Yes, and they're just exceptional.
So now you have to get your coffee at Paradise Suites instead of Paradise To Go, by the way.
Yes, and your ice cream.
Yes.
Paradiso, of course, on 8th Avenue, Red, White, and Booze, Sable Palms, Shadrack's, Shaner's, the Dewey, the Keystone, the Hurricane, and the Wharf. Everyone is so grateful to be there, and so I just want to make sure everyone knew that these places were open and appreciative of any business, and all the employees, too.
Very nice. Okay, well, that is a lovely segue into 5E, which is I want to talk about a little bit about the Mary Pier and the Shuffleboard Court, which are 2 local kind of businesses that aren't open because they've both been pretty much condemned by the storm. So here's one thing, and this is, I'm just doing this, again, for obviously discussion purposes, and I want the board to obviously know what I'm proposing and kind of doing, and put your thinking caps on and talk to people and stuff. And again, there's no, this is my accumulation of information in the last couple of weeks. The Mary Pier, by the time the city, and this is nothing the city's told me specifically, except for I feel that I can easily say that if the city rebuilds Mary Pier, it could be 2 or 3 years from now, because they have other priorities, budgetary reasons. I've talked to Public Works. I mean, I've got a pretty good feel for that. And it just struck me that Mary Pier really is the iconic symbol of historic Paso Grill, and it has such a connection to the whole history there. So I'm proposing to try to look at getting the private sector involved in the redoing of the Mary Pier. It's very early stages. I'm going to meet, I think, with the Paso Grill Association next week. There's been some individuals that have reached out that said that they could provide financial support to get the Mary Pier done. We have some ideas. The city has given me some information, I guess, about the estimates, what it's going to cost, because I'm on this task force thing too that we met twice so far, and they've talked about some of the damages to the city-owned property. And one of the things, and this is just very, very rough figures, but they had estimated that demolition to the Mary Pier would be $45,000. Now, and I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this. I don't know if that included the shuffleboard court or not, because $45,000 sounds very high for just the pier. So we're gonna probably dig that out. Okay, so it might be the demolition for also the shuffleboard court. And as you know, we already have a demolition permit for the shuffleboard court, which, I don't know where the money comes from the city to do that, but obviously it's an eyesore, and that probably should happen as soon as it could. But again, the city's got a lot of things going on. I'm clearly not telling them what to do. The Mary Pier, I've been told, and you can go down there and look, that the pilings, the dock itself is fine. It's just the building that's the problem, which is good because they don't really have to do underwater work on that at all. Now, if you go and look in the windows, if you step over the evidence tape and look in the windows, you can see it's like a ice fishing house now, because you could fish right through the floor because the floor is pretty much removed there. And so they've condemned that. It's going to, I believe there's people, local contractors, that would probably take the job on. So I'm approaching it from the standpoint of trying to, like I said, get private sector donations involved. I'm talking to the city maybe whether that could be a situation. I know there's insurance money for the structure, which doesn't pay for the whole rebuild. It doesn't mean that the city would allow that money to go towards that in particular. They might want to use it for something else. So it's obviously a situation where we're going to have to get in front of the commission at some time. There's a street party in Paso Grill on 8th Avenue, I think May 3rd, which could be a good time to try to raise donations or do something like that. I'm just looking for input and ideas, and you may know people that have interest in it. And I'd like to maybe follow up next month with that. In the meantime, I guess for the attorney's point of view, I'm not looking at this as a historic preservation board led event. This is just throwing it out there to the community, okay? So I'm going to ask you if you think that we would be involved in some sort of sunshine law violation if I talk to any of these people about any ideas or thoughts they might have to that, or whether we should just handle that in here, and if so, maybe I should have kept my mouth shut. But no.
I do think that should be handled here. If it's any sort of decision that even appears like it would be an activity of the Historic Preservation Board, you run the risk of it appearing to be a sunshine violation.
Well, yeah, okay. I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying this more as not as a Historic Preservation Board.
Just as a member of the community.
As a member of the community, and I'm just putting the signet, just like someone can talk about what's happening out in the community. This, I'm putting the feelers out, anybody that's listening, you know, and the people here that I know are concerned about that, but I would have to have some discussion with the city, obviously, at some point, and so it would be, I think I can recognize my responsibilities as far as that goes.
Yeah, if there's anybody, you know, who's ordinarily on the Historic Preservation Board who, you know, you were meeting with and talking
Yep.
with outside of this, even if you began talking about the Mary Pier, if the conversation drifted towards something that would be an official duty of the Historic Preservation Board, there's always a risk there.
Okay. All right, so with all that caveat there, you know, I'm just telling you all to put your thinking caps on, and we can meet again, talk about it, if we can put it on the meeting for next month to see, so we have the permission to be bringing that up again.
For the Friends of the Mary Pier.
You can come up with a better name than that, I would think. That's
Friends of the
simple.
library,
Yeah.
Friends of the museum, yeah.
Again, I
And there's,
have interest in
and one
trying
thing,
to
if
put
I
it
can,
back together, too.
if I can ask staff for this, could we, since we're gonna have that as a discussion item next month, could we get a copy of the current lease for the Mary Pier? Because obviously, nothing's going on there, and probably would not be going on there for 2 or 3 years unless some private people step in. And I've been told, you know, from talking to people at the city, that they love the idea, you know, they're more power to us if we can get something like that done. So, all right?
I have one more request to make.
Sure.
Okay. So I noticed we've started doing this swearing in process as a group now. Can we add that as an agenda item so that people know what to expect and we don't overlook that at some point, so it becomes something that happens right after the
Pledge of Allegiance or
of the
something.
minutes or
Same
something?
thing.
I would highly recommend that.
Yeah, that makes sense, sure, just gets it over with.
And maybe at the same time, when you swear them in, make sure they understand that even though they've been sworn in, they need to state their name for the record when they approach the podium. That'd be a good
address.
time to remind that.
Yes.
And then also, if we could add as a regular agenda item at the end with discussion items, an update on any city-owned historic resources. So that would kind of encompass what's happening at Mary Pier, what's happening at
The
Rose Park,
shuffleboard
what's happening at the
and et cetera.
baseball stadium. If there's a Warren Webster issue, something like that, it would automatically be part of our discussion. That's all.
Very good, yes.
And if we were going to consider adding swearing in to the beginning of the agenda, I would also suggest having an opportunity for everybody to disclose their ex parte communications concerning any of the action items prior to those hearings.
At that time?
Yes.
Okay. That's all right.
Things like, you know, visiting the properties would also be under ex parte communications. And so if anything like that goes into your consideration on those action items, that should be disclosed. And we could have an opportunity to disclose those things prior to the hearings if we're going to do the swearing in ahead of time too.
So just so I'm clear what you said on the ex parte, so I mentioned earlier that I drove by that guy's house and noticed that the driveway is on the other side. Is that something that is considered ex parte that I would have to comment on, even though?
Yes, and you have been commenting on it.
Right, okay,
as you-
all right.
And so that's okay. That is something, though, to be disclosed if it does factor into anybody's decision. If they have looked at the property ahead of time, that's something that should be disclosed.
I always drive by these.
Yeah,
When
I
we get our
mean,
agenda, that's part of my, I feel like I
No,
know
no,
what I'm
and that's
talking
totally-
about as long as.
And I don't want to get in an
That's
argument about
also very
sunshine law violation, but
No, no, no.
ex parte, you know, to me is you have a discussion with somebody, not that you receive information that's different than what's on the agenda.
It's any outside information different from the evidence that's presented to you in this room at the time of the hearing.
Okay. I mean, I think that that's like arguing what hearsay is, you know, it's like, you know, so I took a degree, I have a degree in architecture, am I supposed to, I don't, but, you know.
Oh, no,
reveal
it's
that.
specific to that individual property.
Okay.
I was supposed to disclose that?
I mean, that house, the 808 house, I had a lot of fun in that house. I maybe should disclose some of that, you know, in the old
Probably
days.
shouldn't disclose any.
No, okay, all right, that sounds good.
And it's with regard to that particular.
I understand
item.
what- I
So if
understand what
you've
you're
seen the
saying.
house at some point in time, you know,
Right.
before the application was submitted, that's. you were, visiting to specifically gather information on for that particular agenda item. That's where you would draw the line. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, but it's almost like, I'm just being argumentative here. It's almost like we're saying, if you don't just want to sit in your home and read it, but actually want to go out and do something, then you've got to tell everybody you're actually going out and do something, which to me should just be, I think everyone should be going out and look at the property. What if they don't include photographs that you need to look at, or they got old photographs?
I love my morning walks.
I never see you walking. I see you honking from your car. But, okay. All right. Really good. Thank you, Dan. I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Everybody? All right. Good. All right. With that,
Bang.
adjourned.
All right.
Thank you all.